She's a mother, journalist, author and mental health campaigner. She's an ambassador for Beyond Blue, the National Depression Initiative, and she is a best-selling author. The Best of Times, The Worst of Times, and Love, Wisdom, Motherhood, Conversations with Inspiring Women. So, would you please welcome our final speaker for today, Jessica Rowe.
Oh, Gretel, thank you for such a beautiful introduction. And I think it was about, dare I say, 18 years ago when we first met in the Channel 10 makeup room. I remember sitting there, and I used to love going into makeup. It was sort of like transformation time, putting on my armour for the day. What an incredible 2 days this has been. I have learnt so much and been challenged. I know I used those words at the very start of the conference yesterday, but there is so much to think about and so much to take on board. I think one of the overriding things for me is that sense of just being in the moment. I know for me that is something that's really difficult to do, especially as a mum, especially when you're busy trying to juggle everything. And I was thinking a little bit more about this, and I think sometimes once you do have children, you more and more live in the moment because you're seeing the world through their eyes. And there can be some magical moments, but at the same time, there can be some god-awful, boring, tedious, mundane moments. And I suppose that's what I wanted to talk a little bit about this afternoon, almost lifting that mask of motherhood, because what I found once I became a mum was what was meant to be the happiest time of my life turned out to be one of the toughest and most challenging times of my life. And that was compounded, I suppose, by this pressure that I felt from friends, people around me, well-meaning people, saying things like, oh, isn't this the best time of your life? Isn't this the happiest you've ever been? And for me, someone who had always been a fairly optimistic, bright, cheery person, it was really hard to actually say, you know what, this isn't the best time of my life. This is the hardest, and no, it's not getting better, it's actually getting worse. Because I had postnatal depression, and I didn't want to recognise it initially. And this really surprised me enormously because over the years I have been very open about my family's experience with mental illness. My mum's got bipolar disorder. For many years, Mum and I have campaigned for greater mental health awareness, spoken a lot about the need to end the stigma that surrounds mental illness. So this was a message that I was familiar with. I understood mental illness, or so I thought, having grown up with a mum who has bipolar. I knew where to go to get help. I had the economic means to get help. But I felt the stigma and the shame. And that shocked me enormously because I thought, if I feel like this, somebody who has so much at my disposal to get better, imagine how difficult it must be for so many other families who don't have an ounce of that understanding around them, economic means to get help, who don't have that support. And so it really, as I said, it shocked me because I couldn't believe that I felt so ashamed. And I tried to hide it for a while, how I was feeling. I love clothes. I've always loved clothes and nice shoes and all that sort of stuff. So I used to put enormous effort into, putting on a nice dress, sunglasses, when I'd go out the door, pushing Allegra, my darling firstborn, in the pram. And if people would be looking at me, they'd think, oh, look at that mum. She knows what she's doing. Oh, she looks happy. She's got it together. But I didn't have it together. I had no idea. I felt adrift, and I felt at sea. I felt like I was drowning. I was really, really frightened. And I remember going along to my first mother's group, and they can be great places, but they can also be very toxic. And unfortunately for me, the group that I walked into wasn't the ideal group. I remember arriving, I was late. It had taken me forever to get Allegra into the baby capsule, clipped into the car, and I finally arrived, and everyone was there, and they looked so happy and blissful, and they were breastfeeding their babies easily, and they were having that sort of conversation about, oh, isn't this wonderful, and my baby sleeps all night, and all this sort of crap. If you're really honest, it's crap. And that conversation, it made me feel even more diminished, because I thought, what's wrong with me? I am a grown woman. I've managed to hold down a career. I've coped with numerous things in my life. But why am I failing? Why at my biggest test, my biggest job in my life, my most important role, why do I feel like I'm failing? And I didn't have the confidence to actually say to that group of women, no, no, my baby's not sleeping. No, I hate breastfeeding. It hurts. My nipples are bleeding. This is horrible. I didn't have the confidence to say that. And looking back, I am sure there were other women in that room who felt exactly as I felt. But none of us had the confidence to actually put voice to what we were feeling. I think we were all buying into that myth, that idea that you become a mum, you know, the yummy mummy, you're capable, you know what you're doing, and you can handle all these things in your life, so along comes the baby and, oh, you can handle this easily too. And it's hard. And so I suppose, obviously then I wasn't ready to be honest, because I wasn't ready to be honest with myself. But that sowed the seeds of me talking now about having had postnatal depression and how I got through it. Because what I find, and stories I think are so important, the stories that we share with one another, because we all have a story, we all have a tale to tell, and they're the sorts of things that unite us. They make you feel understood, because you start to open up, and it gives other people permission to say, actually, this is tough for me too. I'm not having a good day. I need some help. It gives other people permission. And that's really very much why I continue to talk, as I said, about my postnatal depression. I remember talking to my mum. She was the first person that I told, because I knew she'd understand and I knew that she wouldn't judge. And she said to me, Jessica, you know you have to go and get some help, and you know you have to tell your husband. And I knew I had to do all of these things, but again I was so afraid, because I felt if I owned up to what I was feeling, I was letting Peter down and I was letting our family down, that I was failing, as I said, in my most important role. And I'll never forget, this was probably one of the hardest conversations of my life, really, was when Peter and I were sitting there one particular evening. Allegra was asleep, thank goodness, and you know, he was sort of saying, oh, isn't it terrific, and oh, you're doing so well, and oh, it's fabulous. And I took a deep breath and I thought, I have to tell him. And I said, you know what, it's not fabulous. I'm so sad and I'm so scared about how I'm feeling. I'm scared about what I might do, and I need help. I can't sleep at night, even though I was so exhausted. And I used to lie there and just have these really obsessive, scary thoughts going through my mind. And for someone like me, who isn't like that, it was very confronting. And Peter, being the darling man that he is, he took me in his arms and he said, "It's going to be okay." And that was what I needed to hear. I needed to know that it would be okay. And I know I don't want this sort of to sound cheesy, but I remember then going to bed that night, and already there was a weight that was just starting, wasn't lifting, but I just felt a little bit lighter. Because once I had put voice to what was going on in my mind, those scary thoughts, they didn't feel quite so frightening. So the next day, Peter rang my obstetrician. Again, we were lucky. We had an obstetrician. We were able to get in to see her straight away. And he organised for me to go in and talk to my doctor. And I remember pouring my heart out to her and just sobbing and sobbing. And I remember sort of saying to her, what I was afraid of too was that, oh my goodness, am I now turning into my mum? And I was frightened because I'd seen how much Mum has struggled over the years, and I thought, is this now my road, my path? And the doctor said, listen, I've organised for you to see a psychiatrist, a specialist, and she can see you the very next day. So again, I was lucky. I was sort of given the right directions. I saw who I needed to see early on. I went in to see the psychiatrist. I put on one of my nicest frocks and some lipstick, and I'll never forget, I walked into her office and sat down, and she said, you can stop pretending. I'm here to listen to you, and I want you to be honest and tell me what's going on. And so I took my glasses off, and again I could feel this weight coming off, lifting off my shoulders. And what was so wonderful was that although I had a long way to go and a lot of work to do, she helped validate what I was going through, because I said to her, I'm feeling like this, I'm having these thoughts, I'm losing my mind, I'm crazy, all of these sorts of things. And because I thought she would say to me, oh yes, this is shocking, appalling, what sort of person are you? But she said to me, but that's normal. And I was like, what? Normal? What do you mean normal? This is, I'm a crazy woman. And she said, no, what you are feeling is normal for someone who has postnatal depression. So over time, with the help of my doctor, my beautiful family, and with medication, I came to realise that I wasn't a failure. I wasn't a bad mum. Because I had this illness, it didn't mean I didn't love my baby. I just had an illness that I needed to get some help with, some help to get through. And that's why I talk about my experience, because it's so important to know that help is there, and you don't have to go through such feelings on your own, because you're not the only one. Even though when you're in the midst of it, you really feel like this tunnel. It's only me. There is no way through it. But there is a way through it. And that's why I stand here before you this afternoon to say there is a way through. Life is good. I've got two beautiful girls now. Allegra started school this year. Giselle, my baby's almost 3. I did have postnatal depression again after Giselle was born, and I was able to get onto it much sooner because I was aware of what I needed to look for, and also I obviously was a lot more, I suppose, gentler on myself. And I still have to be careful in terms of looking after me. I'm still on medication, it works for me, and I think that's important to be able to say, this has helped me. Again, I know medication is a very personal thing, but if someone has heart disease, if someone has diabetes, there's no problem or shame with them taking medication. You don't say to that person, oh, you're just imagining it, it's all in your mind, you don't need to be taking those things. For me, it's been incredibly useful. But let's, if we can, all of us, I suppose, share our stories. That would be my, not message, but I suppose that's what makes me happy, having conversations with people and sharing our stories, because it's what links us as people, and I think that's what's very special about this conference, the sorts of conversations that we've had over the past couple of days. We have them in this room, but we don't have them enough with the wider world. And I know for many of you here who work as teachers, as social workers in sort of the caring fields, you're bringing those conversations to a wider group of people, and let's keep that conversation going. So, as I said, life for me is good. Still has its boring moments. It still has its times when I wonder, oh my God, am I ever going to get out the door? I mean, just the other day, I was rushing to take Giselle to preschool and get Allegra to school, and we were walking down the road and I had Giselle on my hip, and I was thinking, oh, my dress feels a bit uncomfortable anyway. So I finally get to the door of the preschool and I realised I'd walked all the way through the shops down the street with my dress tucked up, revealing my underpants to the world, And I thought, oh, the glamour of motherhood. But I wouldn't be anywhere else, and life is good. So I think let's celebrate the good, because there is the sadness, but we need to find that light, and that's very much what I hope to do. Thank you so much.